Long before history was written in stone, before the pyramids rose from desert sands, before temples crowned the mountains of forgotten lands, there was Atlantis. But the true story of Atlantis was never about gold. It was never about lost continents or sunken palaces. It was about something far older, far more dangerous, far more powerful: energy. A civilization built not on metal, nor on war, but on living light, on the forgotten science of crystals. In the heart of Atlantis, the world shimmered in ways modern eyes can barely comprehend. The walls of their temples were not mere stone, they were lattices of energy, humming with frequency. Their towers rose not to dominate the sky, but to gather, amplify, and transmit the pulse of the earth itself. To walk through the streets of Atlantis was to walk through a world alive with resonance. The very air was charged with harmony, invisible rivers of energy flowing from crystalline structures planted deep beneath the soil. This was not magic, it was not myth, it was technology, but not as we know it. The ancient Atlanteans had discovered, or perhaps remembered, that the universe is not dead matter. It is vibration, sound, frequency, and crystals were the purest expression of this truth. Each crystal was alive in its own way, attuned to specific energies, specific tasks. Some sang with the frequency of healing. Others pulsed with protective force fields. Some could store memory vast libraries of information encoded in patterns of light. They built their cities around these living stones, not merely for decoration, but for survival. Crystals powered their homes. They illuminated their temples without flame. They communicated across distances through harmonic resonance. They moved great ships over oceans using the repelling force of vibrational fields. The knowledge was everywhere, etched into their architecture, woven into their language, embedded within their spiritual practices. In the inner sanctums of Atlantis stood the greatest of these structures, the crystal temples. These were not places of worship in the way we understand them now. They were energy machines, sacred engines that connected heaven and earth. The high priests and priestesses of Atlantis were not merely spiritual leaders, they were keepers of frequency, guardians of vibration, masters of energy. And at the heart of every temple was the great crystal, a towering structure of pure, refined material cut and activated with a precision we can barely imagine today. These crystals pulsed with soft, rhythmic light not unlike a heartbeat, and through them, the Atlanteans harnessed the very power of the earth. It is said that these great crystals were grown, not mined. They were cultivated in special chambers, aligned with cosmic forces, nourished by solar and telluric energy. Each took generations to reach maturity. But the crystals were not only tools, they were bridges. They were used in healing chambers, where specific frequencies restored balance to the human body. They were used in meditation halls, amplifying consciousness until the initiate could transcend physical limitations and travel through inner worlds. And in the deepest layers of the Atlantean world, there existed crystals attuned to other realms entirely, portals to dimensions unseen, keys to memory beyond lifetimes. This was the forgotten world, a civilization not enslaved by technology but in harmony with it, a people who understood that true power does not come from domination over matter, but from alignment with the living frequencies of existence. But what happened to this world? What became of this radiant civilization, this empire of crystal light? That is the question that echoes through time. And the answer is darker than legend dares to tell. The Atlanteans were not guessing. They were not experimenting blindly with forces they did not understand. Their crystal technology was not primitive magic. It was precision beyond anything our world remembers. Because they knew the first law of reality: everything vibrates. Every stone, every breath, every thought is frequency. Modern science touches the surface of this truth. It speaks of energy fields, electromagnetic waves, quantum resonance. But what the ancients knew, what the Atlanteans mastered, went far beyond. They understood that crystals were the physical embodiment of pure order in nature, matter frozen in perfect geometry, locked into harmonic structures that mirrored the invisible architecture of the universe. Where we see stone, they saw pattern. Where we feel weight, they felt vibration. But not all crystals were the same. Atlantean crystals were grown cultivated in sacred environments designed to amplify specific frequencies. These were not mined from the earth like crude resources. They were birthed in chambers of sound and light aligned perfectly with the rhythms of the cosmos. Some were designed for healing, cut into forms that could draw out disease and restore energetic flow within the human body. Others were designed for energy storage, absorbing solar or telluric power and releasing it through harmonic amplification. It is said that the high priests of Atlantis could tune crystals in much the same way one tunes a musical instrument. By using specific sound frequencies, singing, chanting, or vibrating sacred instruments, they could adjust the resonance of a crystal until it aligned with the desired energetic field. This was the real science of sound, the lost art of vibration. Atlantean architecture itself was designed as a network of resonance chambers. Walls were angled not for beauty, but for sound flow. Ceilings were curved to direct energy waves. Floors were embedded with crystalline grids, capturing subtle forces and distributing them through the city, like blood through veins. Their power grids were invisible to the eye but pulsed beneath the earth like arteries of light. At the center of this technology was the greatest secret of all the crystal heart of Atlantis. Legends speak of a master crystal, a structure beyond comprehension that functioned as the energetic core of the entire civilization. It drew energy from the stars, from the earth, from the very consciousness of the people. This crystal was not merely a tool, it was alive. It responded to thought, to intention, to emotional frequency. It amplified the collective consciousness of the Atlanteans, binding them together in unity, in harmony. But such power came with danger. Because the Atlanteans knew that energy is neutral, it can heal or destroy, it can liberate or enslave. The same crystal that could power a city could tear it apart. And slowly, imperceptibly, a fracture began. As the generations passed, some among the Atlanteans began to use the crystals for personal gain. They broke the ancient laws of balance. They sought to dominate, to control, to weaponize the very forces that once sustained them. The vibration of Atlantis began to change. The harmony that once pulsed through every street, every temple, every life was replaced by dissonance, greed, division. The crystals that once sang in unity now trembled with instability. And the earth responded. Because the crystals of Atlantis were never separate from nature, they were part of the living body of the planet, and when their resonance fell out of balance, when their energy turned against itself, the end became inevitable. But before that final moment, before the towers fell and the ocean rose, the keepers of the old knowledge acted. They scattered fragments of their technology across the world. They buried crystal libraries beneath stone temples. They encoded their wisdom in symbols, in myths, in forgotten languages, waiting for a time when the world would be ready, waiting for dreamers, for seekers, for those who could remember. For the science of the Atlantean crystals was never truly lost. It sleeps beneath our feet and within us, waiting to awaken. In the forgotten world of Atlantis, temples were not built for worship, they were built for power. Not political power, not dominion over people, but a far older power, the energy that moves through all things, the pulse of the earth, the breath of the stars, the vibration of life itself. These were the crystal temples, structures unlike anything that survives in our world today, living machines built from stone and light, geometry and resonance. When the ancients raised their temples, they were building more than monuments. They were building technology vast, interconnected systems designed to harness, amplify, and direct energy with precision beyond modern imagination. From the outside, these temples shone like living jewels. Crystalline towers reflected the light of the sun in brilliant, cascading spectrums, each color vibrating at specific frequencies designed to interact with the human body and mind. The walls themselves were embedded with crystal veins, channels through which energy flowed like water through ancient rivers. These veins connected to central nodes, crystal cores placed at points of perfect geometric alignment. But these structures were not built randomly. Every angle, every stone, every carving, all of it was aligned to celestial movements, the rotation of the earth, the position of the stars, the breath of the seasons. The temples were alive, responsive to the movements of the cosmos. At the heart of each temple was the energy chamber, a sanctum few ever entered. Here stood the great crystal, a massive structure of unimaginable purity, suspended within a field of harmonic force. This was no mere ornament. It was a living interface, a consciousness amplifier. The high priests of Atlantis would enter this chamber to meditate, to heal, to communicate across vast distances, even across dimensions. By focusing their thoughts, their intentions, their very vibration, they could activate the crystal. Its light would intensify, its hum rising into harmonics that could be felt in the bones, in the blood, in the soul. Some crystals were designed for healing entire populations, emitting frequencies that restored balance, dissolved illness, realigned the energetic field of the people. Others were designed for protection, creating force fields around cities, shielding them from natural disasters or outside threats. But the most mysterious of all were the portals. Certain crystal temples were built atop points of immense telluric energy places where the fabric between worlds was thin. Through precise activation of the crystal matrix, the Atlanteans could open gateways not through physical space, but through consciousness. To step into these portals was to leave behind the material world and enter realms of pure energy, pure thought. It was here that the greatest initiations took place. The dreamers, the seekers, the guardians of forgotten wisdom all passed through the portals of the crystal temples, and when they returned, they were changed forever. The temples of Atlantis were not isolated. They formed a global network connected by lines of energy that spanned oceans, continents, mountains. What remains today, the pyramids of Egypt, the megaliths of South America, the standing stones of Europe, are the scattered bones of this forgotten grid, markers of a time when humanity did not fear energy, but lived within its flow. But the greatest tragedy of all was not the destruction of the temples. It was the loss of understanding. Because Even if the stones remain, even if the crystals sleep beneath the earth, without the wisdom of vibration, without the harmony of intention, they are silent, dormant, waiting, but they can awaken. And perhaps for those who listen, for those who remember the crystal temples, will rise again, not as monuments of stone, but as living machines of light built not by hands, but by consciousness. The same consciousness that once shaped Atlantis and will one day shape the world again. There is a hidden map beneath our feet, a map that no modern atlas shows, a network that no satellite detects, but it exists older than any empire, older than any kingdom carved in stone. It is the forgotten power grid of the ancient world, the energy system of Atlantis. Because Atlantis was never a single island lost to the sea. Atlantis was a civilization of connection, of flow, of resonance. The Atlanteans understood what many today have forgotten, that the earth is not dead matter. It is a living being, a body of energy, woven with currents of force that move beneath the surface like veins beneath skin. These currents were known in ancient traditions as ley lines, lines of power, invisible rivers of energy that flow along fault lines, mountain ranges, and deep subterranean structures. Where these lines intersect, energy intensifies. It pulses upward like breath exhaled from the core of the earth. These were the places the Atlanteans chose to build their temples, their towers, their crystal machines. But these were not isolated sites. They were nodes, connection points within a vast energetic network that spanned continents and oceans. The Atlantean power grid was a masterpiece of sacred engineering. Temples and crystal structures acted as both receivers and transmitters. They drew energy from the earth, amplified it through crystal resonance, and sent it across vast distances to other nodes within the grid. Imagine a world where energy flowed not through wires but through the ground itself, a world without pollution, without combustion, without the scars of fossil fuel. This was the world of Atlantis. Energy was clean, infinite, harmonized with the frequencies of life. Some structures were built to gather solar energy crystals cut to absorb and store the power of the sun. Others were aligned to lunar cycles, drawing down subtle forces during full moons or eclipses. There were even towers designed to capture the energy of sound vibrating with the natural hum of the earth, the wind, the ocean. Nothing was wasted, everything was connected. This grid powered their cities, their transportation, their healing centers. It stabilized weather patterns, it nourished the soil. It even enhanced human consciousness, lifting the vibration of entire populations. But it was not limited to Atlantis alone. Fragments of this grid remain scattered across the world. The great pyramids of Egypt, aligned with cosmic precision, were not tombs. They were energy machines, tuned to the pulse of the planet. Stone circles like Stonehenge in England, megalithic complexes in Peru, the ancient temples of Cambodia, Indonesia, and Easter Island. All of these are echoes, remnants of a lost system. They were built on power points, places where the Earth's energy still rises like breath from forgotten lungs. And beneath them in caverns few have entered, ancient crystals may still hum with the memory of Atlantis. But something went wrong. As the Atlantean civilization grew in power, its harmony began to fracture. The energy grid, once maintained with care and spiritual discipline, was exploited by those seeking domination. Crystals were pushed beyond their limits. Energy fields became unstable. Resonance turned to dissonance. And when the grid failed, the planet responded. Earthquakes shattered cities. Ocean waves rose higher than any wall. The network collapsed, not only physically but spiritually. The knowledge was scattered. The temples fell. The world descended into darkness. But the grid itself was never fully destroyed. It sleeps beneath our feet, waiting. Some say the earth is awakening again, that the forgotten lines of power are stirring, that the ancient nodes are calling to those who can feel them. Perhaps you have felt it standing among ancient stones, feeling something vibrate beneath your skin, a forgotten pull, a song older than memory. This is not imagination. It is the Atlantean grid still alive beneath the ruins of time. And one day, for those who remember, it may rise again, not through machines of metal, but through the awakening of consciousness itself. No civilization falls in a single night. Collapse begins in silence, in forgotten laws, in broken oaths, in choices made far from the eyes of the people in the chambers of power, where shadows twist ancient knowledge into weapons. Atlantis was no exception. For thousands of years, the Atlanteans lived in harmony with their world. Their cities pulsed with crystalline energy. Their bodies and minds were nourished by frequency and light. Their priests guarded the laws of balance, knowing that the forces they commanded were alive, conscious, sacred. But then came the fracture. It began, as it always does, with pride. Some among the Atlantean elite, once guardians of wisdom, began to see the crystal technology not as a gift to protect, but as a tool to control. They wanted more power, more reach, more dominion over the earth, and even over the human soul. The ancient texts speak of this time in veiled words: the rise of the sorcerer kings, the misuse of the great crystals, the corruption of the energy grid. Where once the crystals were used for healing, they were now weaponized. Fields of energy that once nourished life became walls of force to enslave minds. The crystal towers, once tuned to the harmony of the stars, were recalibrated to project dominance, to manipulate thought, to bend nature to human will. Atlantis had forgotten its first law. That energy reflects consciousness, and the crystals, sensitive beyond imagination, began to absorb not only the commands of the priests, but the intentions of a corrupted people. The harmony was breaking. The earth itself began to rebel. Storms darkened the skies. Tides rose higher. The great grid, once a masterpiece of balance, now vibrated with instability. The high priests, who had remained loyal to the old ways, saw what was coming. They warned the rulers. They begged for restraint. But it was too late. The most terrifying power of the Atlantean crystals was not their ability to store energy, but their ability to release it. When the resonance of the grid reached a critical point, when the frequencies of greed, fear, and domination outweighed harmony, the system turned against itself. What followed was not merely a natural disaster. It was a collapse of the very fields that sustained their world. The great crystals cracked, some shattered. Others, it is said, were hidden or deactivated in desperate rituals of last resort. The oceans rose. The earth trembled. The cities of light, those impossible wonders of crystalline beauty, were swallowed by the very forces they had once commanded, and Atlantis fell beneath the waves. But not everything was lost. The surviving priests scattered across the world, carrying fragments of knowledge to new lands: Egypt, South America, the Indus Valley, the mountains of Tibet. They became the seed-bearers of forgotten wisdom. They encoded their knowledge in myth, in stone, in symbols waiting to be awakened when the world was ready once again. But they left behind a warning, one that echoes across time. Technology is never evil. Crystals are never evil. Energy is never evil. But consciousness shapes all things. Power without wisdom is death. And the greatest curse of Atlantis was not the fall of its cities, but the forgetting of its lesson. Because we here now stand once again at the edge of that ancient path. We surround ourselves with technology beyond the dreams of our ancestors. We command forces of energy at the push of a button. But have we learned? Or are we repeating the same story? The answer waits not in machines of metal or towers of glass, but in the heart of those who remember. The heart of those who still feel the pulse of the earth. The heart of those who are ready to awaken. Atlantis is gone. Its towers lie beneath the blackened silt of forgotten oceans, its temples drowned in silence, its crystal engines shattered, scattered across the seabed of time. But not everything was lost. Some things cannot die. The earth remembers. And scattered across the world, hidden in stone, in mountain caves, in the heart of ancient ruins, fragments of Atlantean crystal technology still sleep, waiting. For thousands of years, whispers of these stones have passed from mystic to seeker, from shaman to wanderer, stories of strange vibrations deep beneath the earth, stones that glow without light, caverns where sound does not echo but multiplies. These are not myths. They are the remnants of the lost world. In Egypt, deep beneath the sands, lie chambers never opened, carved in perfect resonance with the earth's energy lines. Priests once guarded crystal objects there, devices that could amplify the human voice, project images, even store memory. In South America, the walls of ancient temples hum with a frequency few can hear, built with stones so perfectly cut that not even a blade can pass between them. Legends tell of the solar discs, great crystalline plates once used to direct energy across vast distances. In Tibet, the lamas still guard knowledge of singing stones, rare crystals that vibrate in response to thought or sound. They say these stones were gifts from an older world, a world that fell beneath the sea. And beneath the jungles, the deserts, the ice of forgotten continents lie places still untouched by human hands. Caves carved not for shelter, but for power. Chambers of crystal designed to protect and preserve until the world was ready once more. But the most extraordinary truth is this: the Atlantean crystals were never limited to stone. The Earth itself is the greatest crystal. Our planet, with its iron core, its crystalline crust, its vast deposits of quartz, is a living storage system of energy and memory. It records everything, every sound, every vibration, every thought that resonates deeply enough. Modern science is only beginning to understand this. The phenomenon of piezoelectricity, where crystals generate energy under pressure, is only the surface of a deeper mystery. For the ancients knew that consciousness itself leaves an imprint. The great sites of the world, the pyramids, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, are more than ruins. They are instruments waiting to be played once more. If you have ever stood among ancient stones and felt a hum beneath your feet, if you have ever walked in a silent cave and heard a sound inside your own bones, if you have ever held a crystal and felt its pulse match your heartbeat, then you know. The legacy of Atlantis is not gone. It sleeps in the earth. It sleeps in stone. It sleeps in us. Because the greatest crystal of all is the human being. The ancients knew this. The Atlantean priests taught this. The body, with its crystalline structure of bones, its flowing waters, its electric nervous system, is a living amplifier of consciousness. The same energy that moved through the crystal towers of Atlantis moves through us. It waits for those who remember how to use it. It waits for those who know that the real temple is within. And that when the time comes, when humanity is ready, the crystals of Earth will awaken. Not as weapons, not as machines, but as guides back to what was never truly lost. The forgotten song of energy, the ancient science of light, the living technology of consciousness. Atlantis was never destroyed. It went underground, and it waits even now beneath our feet. The greatest secrets were never buried in stone. The most powerful technologies were never lost beneath the sea, because the final treasure of Atlantis was never its temples, never its towers, never its machines. It was human consciousness itself. The Atlanteans knew long before history forgot that the true crystal of power was not mined from the earth, it was born within the human soul. They built their cities from crystal because they understood themselves as reflections of the same energy. Their bodies, their minds, their hearts all attuned, all vibrating, all living within the great network of energy that bound the earth to the stars. And that knowledge, the oldest knowledge of all, has never left us. It waits, quietly, in dreams, in moments of stillness, in the forgotten feeling that life is more than matter, that we are more than flesh. The time has come to remember. To awaken the crystal consciousness is to return to the path that was lost, not by finding machines buried beneath the earth, but by transforming the temple within. You do not need towers of crystal to activate this power. You are the tower. You are the temple. You are the living technology waiting to be reawakened. It begins with vibration. Every thought you think sends a frequency through your body. Every word you speak is a ripple of energy that moves through space. Every emotion generates a field that shapes the reality around you. The ancients understood this. They spoke less because they knew words were not noise. They practiced silence because in silence, the true voice of the universe speaks. They worked with crystals not as decorations, but as mirrors of their inner world. You can do the same. When you hold a crystal, when you meditate with its energy, you are not asking it for power. You are aligning with a frequency that already exists within you. You are remembering. But the real work happens beyond crystals. It happens when you step outside barefoot on the earth and feel the pulse beneath your feet. It happens when you close your eyes and hear the sound of your own heart like a drum echoing through time. It happens when you remember that the human body is designed to store energy, to transmit light, to hold memory beyond words. This is the true crystal technology of Atlantis. It is not lost. It is not broken. It is only sleeping. And for those who wake it, a different world begins to rise. A world not built on control, but on harmony. A world not powered by machines, but by consciousness. A world where energy flows through stone and spirit alike, without separation. You were never meant to forget. You were never meant to be small. You are the heir of a forgotten civilization, not in blood, but in vibration. And when enough souls remember this truth, when enough hearts awaken, the earth itself will respond. The old grid will hum again. The ancient energy lines will pulse beneath the land. The silent crystals will begin to sing, not because Atlantis will rise from the sea, but because Atlantis will rise from within us.